talking about? We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin', and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. Here we go now. I'm talking about Mr. Gulley, and you don't know where he's been. Oh no, he's been right in your alley. Well, I'm Mr. Gulley, yes I am. So what we talking about? We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin', and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. One, two, three, four. They call me Mr. Gulley. I've got something for your ear. Now it might sound kind of funny, but I'll make it very clear. So what we talking about? We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin', and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. Here we go now. I'm talking about Mr. Gulley, and you don't know where he's been. Oh no, he's been right in your alley. Well, I'm Mr. Gulley, yes I am. So what we talking about? We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin', and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way.
Hey everybody, what's going on? What's hot? What's hip? What's happening? What is shaking on your whatever day it is? Let me tell you about MASH. We're talking about the TV show. We're not talking about, how can I make that thing? Every day it's a different thing with this thing. Does this do any better? Not really. All right, it's just going to appear and disappear throughout the course of the show. We're going to talk about the TV show MASH, not the movie MASH. So cool your jets. We'll talk about the movie a little bit, but anyway, please do me a favor right now. Like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all those free things you can do to help us out. Spread the show around a little. You know, get your cool, hip, influential friends hip to the show. There's the begging bar. That's the list of ways you can help the show out. We didn't really have any help yesterday, but it was my fault. I didn't turn it on. And so we're hoping to make that up today. All right, come on. Let's get in a circle. Let's clap it up. Anyway, we do have some people here in the room before we get to tonight's topic. And Jared is here. He says H2BH. I concur, H2BH. Nick's here, gabbing with Gulley. You betcha. That's what we do here. Well-known celebrity Christian Slater is here. He's... of course, obsessed with spiders. Many people don't know that about Christian Slater, the well-known actor. He is obsessed with spiders, and we're here to satisfy his spider fix. Talking about spiders, maybe Korean, maybe. There's every chance, which I wrote him back, but StreamYard told me having trouble connecting. Please check your internet connection. Right, I'm the problem, StreamYard. I'm the problem. Jean 1313 is here. Man, did she know a lot about last night's topic. She knows a lot about a lot of the topics. Music Biz Marty Official is here, which I appreciate because it involves the afterlife that he's even here. Jared's here. He says, show was better than the movie, although the movie was amazing. Well, we might as well start right there as I tell you about MASH. MASH, if you want to be technical about it, started as a novel. And then it became a very, very popular movie starring Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland, I think. And it was directed by Robert Altman. It was a very sort of sardonic look at war, situated in the Korean War, but really both the movie and the show are talking about the Vietnam War. It's kind of about the Korean War, but due to the time that they both appeared, really kind of a commentary on the Vietnam War. So that's the thing about that. I will also mention one other item about the movie. Those of you, and by the way, there's going to be spoilers throughout this whole thing, so, you know. Those of you who have seen the movie MASH may recall that the MASH unit was going to play a football game. Remember that? And that they recruited a well-known football player by the name of Spear Chucker Jones. The guy who played Spear Chucker Jones? Yeah. Ball State graduate Tim Brown and former NFL star from Ball State University, Timmy Brown. Bet you didn't know that. The Forgotten War. Yes, Korean is the Forgotten War. Let's see, Christian Slater says I was too young for a leading role in the show or the movie. Their loss. I agree, Christian. I saw the movie when I was little, says Music Biz Marty Official. Yep. Yes, Ball State's own Timmy Brown. I think he was really good at returning kickoffs. If I'm not mistaken, he played for the Eagles and the Packers. I could be wrong about that. Well-known Ball State guy. Anyway, MASH aired... Well, let me just get a photo up here for you real quickly. This would be the original cast of MASH right here. And it aired weekly on CBS, with most episodes being about a half an hour in length. The series is usually thought of as a situation comedy, though some people think it's a dark comedy or dramedy because of the dramatic and often unpleasant subject matter, which kind of evolved as the show went on. I will tell you the reasons for that. Now, as you can see by this cast, and we're going to get to all the members of that cast here in just a second, it was an ensemble cast and involved the key personnel in the United States Army Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, that's what MASH stands for, okay? and that was during the Korean War. Now, the 4077th, that's this particular unit, was one of many such units in Korea. The asterisks in the name MASH for both the book, the movie, and the TV show, not really part of military nomenclature at all. Not really. The military didn't do that. They were introduced to be a creative device, make it a little different. And that was done for the novel. And in the movie, they only used it in the poster version, but on television, asterisks. The early seasons on CBS were in prime time, and they were also aired while the Vietnam War was still going on. And so the show, in order to avoid problems with the FCC and the audience in general, really had to be careful about not seeming to protest that war. And instead, they kind of mocked the military's inefficiency, short-sightedness, way of overdoing things. And so, anyway, after the war ended, they could be a little bit more political in some of the plots. The plots were either plot-driven or character-driven. I don't know why I can't talk at the start of these shows, but I can. And one of the main sort of running things that would happen, not every episode, but very frequently, the show was narrated by one of the characters in a letter home. They would be writing a letter home, and that letter home would narrate what happened in that particular episode. And the show could go from completely slapstick, silly, to really dark and sobering, and just like that. And there you are. Now, there was kind of a schism, if you will. I'll show you the 1977 cast here. Let's just bump that up, shall we? There was a definitive line in the sand between these characters that, wasn't 100% obvious, but it was not really hidden in the show either. If you see there, Hawkeye, right there, second from the right on the first row, and there's BJ Honeycutt, and those two fellas, along with the guy in the back there, two of them in the back, actually three of them in the back, maybe four. Klinger, Charles Emerson Winchester, and Radar, these were draftees. They were civilians. Whereas Colonel Potter, there on the left, and Hot Lips Houlihan, as well as Major Frank Burns, they were Army regulars. They were members of the Army. So whereas nobody wanted to be here, the civilians really didn't want to be here because they didn't choose that life, so to speak. They didn't enlist voluntarily, right? So those guys helped develop a way of showing the civilian attitudes toward Army life, because for a long time, most American males, were drafted into the Army, and there's a very different viewpoint between those who were drafted in and those who chose to join voluntarily. Reviewing the series in 1980 for the BBC, Ludovic Kennedy said, "Its humor derives from mainly the layman's delight in finding that members of the medical profession, traditionally very buttoned up, straight-laced figures, can in their social lives be just as venal and silly as the rest of us." And that was a big thing about MASH. All the other doctor shows on TV, well, they made doctors look godlike and very serious all the time, whereas MASH showed these guys as just regular Joes that happened to be doctors, right? The personnel changed on the show, as I showed you between this cast here. It's got Wayne Rogers up there at the top, who played Trapper John, And then also Frank Burns is there at the upper left. Those two would leave the series before its completion. Oh, wait, by the same token, over to the far right is McLean Stevenson, who was Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake at the start. And when those people left, they were replaced. Sherman Potter replaced Henry Blake. Charles Emerson Winchester replaced Frank Burns. And so we went on. Okay? Several other main characters departed or joined during the run. Numerous guest actors and recurring characters were used. In fact, so many characters were used on the series, and I just found this out today, that they couldn't keep finding names for people. It was really difficult for the writers to keep creating names. And if you've ever written a novel or a short story or anything really, where you have to come up with the people's names, piece of fiction, it's not that easy. Well, the characters on the 7th season were named after the 1978 Los Angeles Dodgers. They finally just threw their hands up and went, forget it. I'm done. That's it. And let's just talk about some of those characters, shall we? Characters beloved to us all. Jared says, damned FCC. Yeah. Up fingers. Yeah, everybody, give me a like. Tell a friend. Phone the neighbor. Wake the kids. This fella here. Yeah. Oh, come on. Really? Are we doing this today, StreamYard? By the way, I've watched some other shows today, and StreamYard's given a lot of people problems today. This would be Benjamin Franklin Hawkeye Pierce, played by Alan Alda. Rank of captain, chief surgeon, by the way. And Hawkeye was kind of the center of the show, as much as it could have a center. Now, that doesn't mean he was the focus of every episode. No, far from it. But he was kind of the heart and the soul of the program. He was the one that liked to kind of poke the establishment. He was the one that was a realist about being a surgeon. It was possible for him to not like somebody, but consider them an incredibly good surgeon. In the case of Charles Emerson Winchester, I don't really like that stuffed shirt, but man, he's a great surgeon. So he was in 256 of the episodes. Here we have the just recently departed Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, also known for a while as Margaret Hot Lips Penobscot when she married Donald Penobscot. She was played by Loretta Swit. She was a major, and she was the head nurse. I'm not going to do the joke. You guys could do the joke. And Ruffled Trenchcoat, share the show, why don't you? Good idea, Jared. Rumpled Trenchcoat is here, one of the most knowledgeable TV people in the universe. And he says that it looks like Hawkeye Pierce has a big bag as a bottle of Pervitin in that bag. Well, I do admit I photoshopped it a little before the show started. So there's Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, Loretta Swit. Now, at first on the show, she was played as a comic foil. She was, arm in arm with Frank Burns. She believed in the letter of the military law, and she was someone to be made fun of. But as the show went on, she got much more compassionate. She became much more of a regular person, and of course, Frank Burns left anyway. And there's a couple of great storylines. One of the ones I like the best is when she and Hawkeye, who really didn't get along very well together, were stranded behind enemy lines in this little hooch, if you will, and had quite a romantic encounter and really, got to know each other as people. And then they went back to the 407 7th, and it was business as usual. So there you are. There's another great episode with Margaret where she was having to be very strict with some of the nurses, and she overheard them being very cruel to her, and it affected her very deeply. And it was just a great storyline, how she sort of reached out and managed to show those people that worked for her that she was a person too. And she was in 239, second place, 239 episodes. Now, here we have a lot of people's favorite, and this is odd because, let's just be honest, Max Klinger was a cross-dresser, a shameless cross-dresser. And the reason for that was he wanted a Section 8, which is basically being found mentally incompetent to be in the Army. So he dressed up in a dress most of those episodes, and he was a corporal at first, and then he became a sergeant. He started out as a combat medic, but then later became a company clerk when Radar O'Reilly left. And he was in 217 episodes, very famously from Toledo, great stories, and, just a great television character, the character of Maxwell Q. Klinger. Now, in fourth place, I don't have his picture up here, really. I guess he's in this picture here. Isn't he? No, he's in this picture. Yes, there he is. Upper left-hand corner is the fourth place guy. And that is going to be, it's actually, I don't know that it is fourth place. Yeah, it is fourth place. That's going to be Father John Patrick Francis Mulcahy, played by William Christopher. He was a first lieutenant, later became captain, and he was the chaplain in 213 episodes. And a lot of episodes where he stood on principle for being a humanitarian and would accept nothing less. Now, in most of the episodes, he's just an amiable, I'll go along with anything kind of guy. But there were a few episodes where he really, really stood up to everyone and kind of said, no, we're not doing that. Rumpled Trenchcoat says, Dago Red in the movie. I don't know what he's talking about there. Maybe he's talking about Klinger. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie. Although, as I will mention once again, one of the key characters, Spear Chucker Jones, a proud graduate of Ball State University. Thank you. Thank you. Trapper John McIntyre. Now, this is an interesting thing because the stories about this are legendary. In the middle, in the back, is Wayne Rogers. And he is kind of known as the dumbest guy in Hollywood because he left MASH after only 3 seasons over some squabble. And, of course, MASH became a smash hit and kept going for 11 seasons. And he has stories about it. They have stories about it. It's never been 100% proven. And a lot of it is Wayne Rogers saying, look, I knew that this was just me playing a sidekick and I wanted to do something better. But whatever. By the way, Christian Slater has been apparently laid spider eggs in here, so everybody be careful. Father Mulcahy was called Dago Red because of the Sacramento wine. I gotcha. In the movie. So there he is, Wayne Rogers. Now, in a bizarre twist of fate, Pernell Roberts from Bonanza would many years later go on to play Trapper John, M.D., in a drama series for like 6 or 7 years. It was a very, very, very popular show. Wayne Rogers had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Nothing to do with it whatsoever. Now, this fella here is also a fella that left the show after 3 seasons, McLean Stevenson, as Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake. He was the commanding officer for the first 3 seasons of the 4077, sorry. Only in 70 episodes, if you can say only about such a thing. But there he is. And we will get to his involvement in what has been, many times voted as one of the top 10 most shocking or most, jaw-dropping moments in American television. Involved his character. Here we have, I guess, a lot of people's, one of their favorite characters, although you didn't like the character. Larry Linville played Frank Burns for 5 seasons. He was a major when the whole thing started. Lieutenant colonel by the end. He was executive officer and interim commanding officer from time to time when someone would be gone or when Henry Blake was replaced. But you hated this guy. He was such a stick in the mud. He was self-involved, self-important, letter of the law, hated Pierce, hated him worse than anything else in the universe, right? And so, you know, there he is. He left after season 5. I think he also was a guy that wanted to try other things. And after 118 episodes, let's see here. Watch out for Slater. Oh, yeah, you got to watch out for Slater. Rumple Trenchcoat says Blake leaving the show was a legendary mistake. Yes, it also was a legendary mistake. Didn't he go to be on My Mother the Car or something? He went on a sitcom that was terrible, or Hello Larry or something. It was Terry. And Terry Nee, we're about to get to something he just said, loved Colonel Flagg. Colonel Flagg is one of the greatest characters in television ever. But there's good old Major Frank Burns, 117 episodes. Oh, by the way, Rumple Trenchcoat here for 17 months. What a troop. Let's have a hand for Rumple Trenchcoat. 17 months of membership. And it was, that's right. He went to go on Hello Larry, an abysmal bomb. Yeah, it was kind of the end. I mean, he did game shows and Love Boat after that. It was kind of the end of his career. One of the more beloved characters on the show, and it's odd because rumored to not be very easy to get along with on the set at all, was Walter Eugene Radar O'Reilly, Gary Berghoff, who was big on Broadway in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Another thing about Radar O'Reilly there, Gary Berghoff, is that he had an accident on one of his hands, and it didn't have like all of its fingers and stuff. So they constantly had to shoot things and, you know, couch things on the set so that wouldn't be shown. One of the reasons he held the teddy bear all the time. Rumple Trenchcoat says, I think he did go on the McLean Stevenson show first, which was even worse. Oh, God, was it? Was it like a variety show or something? Or maybe it was a sitcom. I can't remember. And if I can't remember it, that means it was really, really bad. Radar was a corporal. Was briefly a second lieutenant. He was the company clerk and bugler. 156 episodes. And, you know, probably delivering some of the most shocking, just tragic lines in American television at the end of one of the episodes, which I believe is called Abyssinia Henry. And also the only person, if not one of the few, that Hawkeye ever saluted. When Radar left, Hawkeye saluted him. And there's a great episode where Hawkeye disregards one of his orders or something he asked him to do, and man, Radar stood up to him. It was a great show in that respect, is that nobody was a pushover. Rumple Trenchcoat said his hand injury was why he had a clipboard or the teddy bear all the time. Yeah, or a cup of coffee. Many times, well, or grape knee-high, I guess, maybe in his case. I remember that, says Jared. Yes. He had to earn his respect. The guy who replaced Trapper John was this fella. And that was B.J. Honeycutt, played by Mike Farrell. Now, when Wayne Rogers was on the show, he and Hawkeye were just depraved together. They were sharing in each other's antics all the time. Mike Farrell, his character, B.J. Honeycutt, was a married guy. So he was more down to earth. It was more of like a mature friendship, although he was in on all the stuff too. He just wasn't quite as zealous about it. And he played that character seasons 4 through 11, 183 episodes. Now, another guy who joined in season 4, and these were to replace Trapper John and Henry Blake, was Sherman T. Potter. Harry Morgan, veteran of the movies, of Dragnet, of a lot of things, and hadn't done a lot of broad comedy necessarily. He had done a little of it. He had done some in, what was the movie? Support Your Local Sheriff and stuff. But boy, did he get to do it a lot on MASH. And he was the colonel, commanding colonel, and the surgeon. And, Mike Farrell was 183 episodes. Sherman T. Potter, Harry Morgan was 182. 182. Now, I might point out that one of my favorite characters, and I just didn't have the bandwidth, StreamYard only lets me store 10 pictures for a show. But if you look in the second row, up at the top, second from the right is Charles Emerson Winchester III, and he replaced Frank Burns. He was on the series from season 6 to 11, played by David Ogden Stiers, or Stiers, I've never gotten the pronunciation correct, which is somewhat unforgivable because I actually did a radio commercial where he was the talent, and I especially wrote the spot for him. So there you go. Rumple Trenchcoat says, Harry Morgan played such a great creepy villain in The Big Clock with Ray Milland. Yeah, he was normally just a sort of a side guy in movies and stuff, but he was great. There's no question about that. By the way, we're halfway through. Please like, please share, please subscribe, please notification bell. Become a member, $2.99 a month. It's the greatest value in YouTube history. Also, you can donate via PayPal. That's the way where you give the most and I get the most. And you can always go to the merch store. People are really loving the new Skant line of clothing, which, lest you think you don't get any Tom Gulley stuff on that, all of the Skant t-shirts have a Tom Gulley Show logo on the back. So don't worry your pretty little head about that. But a lot of Skant merchandise has been flying off the shelves lately. Flying off the shelves. So there you go. There you go. Let's see here. Long-serving actors on the show. Let's see. Alan Arbus played psychiatrist Major Sidney Freeman, and he was like instrumental in a lot of the episodes. Not like a hilarious guy or anything. He was just somebody from the outside who would come in and kind of right the ship or help someone with the problem. But as Terry Nee mentioned, Edward Winter, as intelligence officer Colonel Sam Flagg, oh my God, was that guy hilarious. Now, he was actually another character before he started being Sam Flagg, a Captain Halloran in an episode called Deal Me Out. But many, many, many people, and I'm one of them, believe that Captain Halloran was just one of Flagg's many aliases. And this is supported by a comment made by Flagg to psychiatrist Sidney Freeman. He kind of reinforces that. But he was in a bunch of episodes, and he was an absolute freak. An absolute, like what you would expect from a CIA type intelligence, deep cover, didn't believe anybody, the most paranoid character in television history. He was in A Smattering of Intelligence, Officer of the Day, White Gold, Quo Vadis, Captain Chandler, The Abduction of Margaret Houlihan, and Rally Round the Flag with 2 G's, just like the spelling of his name, boys. And I'm telling you what, he also resurfaces a few years after the war in a Hannibal, Missouri courtroom as seen in the series After MASH, which I guess we can get to later. There's a lot of other recurring characters. I mean, Donald Penobscot, you name them. There's a ton of them. Ton of them, I say unto thee. Who do I want to put? I'm going to put Loretta Swit up here since she passed away recently. And va 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 voom, one might say. Oh, I should mention that the set of MASH actually, let me take Margaret down for a minute. The set of MASH actually still is, the location is still in a national park. Now, it has become dilapidated. However, I'll slide over here. See that? One of the, mobile army surgical unit, surgical hospital vehicles was left there. And it is kind of sort of decayed, but it's still there. It's still in the same spot. And I'll tell you where that's located in just a second. So the writing, as many people have noticed and many people have complained about, the writing made a significant shift from being mostly a comedy with an occasional dark element to a drama with a little comedy in it. And that had to do with changes in the writing, production, and acting staff. The co-creator of the series and comedy writer Larry Gelbart left after season 4. And executive producer Gene Reynolds left at the conclusion of season 5. And so almost all the people that started MASH and got it to be popular with the heavy comedy were gone by the beginning of season 6. So that's when Alan Alda and Burt Metcalf, executive producer, took over as the driving force. By the start of season 8, the writing staff, all the people they had writing on the show, were completely gone. And also, cast changes contributed to more drama later in the series, because McLean Stevenson, Larry Little, and Gary Berghoff were verbal and physical comedy people, right? Totally. Mike Farrell, more of a dramatic actor, okay? Harry Morgan could probably do anything. David Ogden Stiers, he could play the foil, but he was kind of a dramatic actor. And another thing that played a part in the shift, the ending of the Vietnam War. So when that happened, they didn't have that sort of hesitance to be as critical of the war, and there you are. Also, as the show got more popular, they experimented very heavily with the sitcom format and the dramatic ways they could do things, that they didn't have those restrictions anymore. There was a show called Point of View, where the entire episode was shot from the perspective of a soldier with a throat wound. He couldn't speak. So all of the things that were happening in front of him were the drama of the show. There's another episode called Dreams, where the MASH unit is getting hit with a ton of casualties. It's one of those episodes where they're in surgery nonstop for almost 2 days. And all of the members of the 4077 take naps on a rotation, and they drift off and dream, to sometimes fanciful dreams, sometimes very dark and disturbing dreams, depending on who was having them. There's an episode called A War for All Seasons that features a storyline that takes place over the entire year of 1951. And then there was one called Lifetime that utilized a real-time method of narration with a clock in the corner of the screen, showing what would happen in a particular segment of time. Yes. By the way, another change from the early sitcom days was they actually put world events that were happening during the Korean War and medical innovations that materialized during that war. The producers did a ton of research, And they interviewed MASH surgeons and personnel and incorporated their accounts into the story. Okay? So sporting events, Marilyn Monroe, all that stuff they put in there. Let's see here. I told you about the set. Now, the outdoor set behind me is in the mountains near Malibu. It's one outdoor set. And that was the same location used to shoot the movie. The indoor set was at Fox Studios in Century City. So there you are. This Malibu location that I just mentioned is known today as Malibu Creek State Park for those California viewers out there. It was formerly called the Century Ranch, and it was owned by 20th Century Fox Studios until the 80s. The site today is returning to a natural state. It's being overgrown, but there is a rusted Jeep and a Dodge ambulance used in the show, and they sometimes used to use it for TV commercials. So in February of 2008, Mike Farrell, B.J. Honeycutt, Loretta Swit, Hot Lips Houlihan, and William Christopher, Father Mulcahy, along with producers Gene Reynolds and Burt Metcalf and MASH director Charles S. Dubin, reunited at the set to celebrate its partial restoration. The rebuilt signpost, which you can see right there, is there. It's displayed on weekends along with tent markers and maps and photos of the set. The state park is open to the public. It's also the location where the film How Green Was My Valley was shot, which I think may have won an Academy Award, and the Planet of the Apes TV series were filmed, amongst other things. There was an exhibition called MASH, Binding Up the Wounds, at the National Museum of American History during 1983 to 1985. And the exhibition was extremely popular, getting more than 17,000 people a week, which is a record for any display at the Smithsonian. The swamp and the operating room sets one of the show's 14 Emmy Awards, and early drafts of the pilot script, costumes, other memorabilia were exhibited. Sets were decorated from props from the show, including the iconic signpost, Hawkeye's still, Major Winchester's Webcore tape recorder and phonograph, and was huge at the Smithsonian. There's a lot of well, let's get some of your comments. Wow, didn't know that. I'd love to visit that place. Well, it's there for you. It's all there for you, Jared. Julian Zeezer's with us. Hello, Julian. By the way, we are accepting memberships. We're expecting, and I believe Julian Zeezer donated to this. I was waiting to see him. Julian Zeezer donated via PayPal last week. What a guy. What a guy. Is it just me, or is MASH kind of cringy in retrospect, given the spectacular success of Korea and all the other events of the past decades? I don't think it's that. I mean, I think if the war hadn't happened, it might be a very different Korea, really, at this point. But I don't know. I didn't think it through that far. I'm not that smart. Jared said, remember the episode they were working against the clock and there was a clock in the upper right-hand corner the whole time? Yes, that was that... Penobscot is an indigenous tribe. Always wondered how he got that name. It just sounded stuffy to me, Penobscot. Lifetime was the one that used the real life with the clock in the corner. Yeah. There's a lot of controversy about the laugh track on MASH. It started off with one, and the creators did not want a laugh track. They had a compromise. They omitted laughter during operating room scenes if desired. And because the creators told the network there was no circumstances could they ever have laughter in an OR scene when the doctors were working. And Larry Gebhardt just goes, the main guy, he is adamant about the laugh track. He hates it Can't stand it. Series 1 through 5 had an invasive laugh track, and then they started kind of tuning it out a little bit. It was still there, and some episodes, OR, The Bus, Quo Vadis, Captain Chandler, The Interview, Point of View, and Dreams, they omitted the laugh track altogether, as did almost all of the last season, season 11, including the legendary 135-minute season finale, which we'll talk about, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. Internationally, and some syndication omits the laugh track. In one occasion in England, and on the BBC, the laugh track was inadvertently left in, and the people who watched it in England really hated it. And the network had to apologize for doing so. UK DVD critics are very critical of the laugh track. Yes. There is an option given on the DVDs released in Region 1, which is the US and Canada, Region 2, Europe, including the UK. There's an option to include or take off the laugh track for all of the episodes. Larry Gebhardt, though, and he has a good point here. He says the laugh track is a lie. He says you're telling an engineer when to push a button to produce a laugh from people who do not exist. It's just so dishonest. The biggest shows when we were on the air were All in the Family and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, both of which were taped before a live studio audience where laughter made sense. But our show is a film show, supposedly shot in the middle of Korea. So the question I always asked the network was, who are these laughing people? Where did they come from? He persuaded CBS to test the show in private screenings with and without the laugh track. The results showed no measurable difference in the audience's enjoyment. So you know what they said? Since there's no difference, let's keep the laugh track in. Gebhardt summed up the situation by saying, I always thought it cheapened the show. The network got their way. They were paying for dinner. So there you go. There you go. All right, let's see. We got some things here we need to go over. It's not cringe. Okay. The always generous Rumpled Trenchcoat Columbo podcast, if you're not listening to it or watching it on YouTube, you're missing out. He has gifted 5 Tom Gulley Show memberships. That is so nice of you. Thank you so much. I don't know who got them. Probably most of them went to people that hate my guts. But I welcome them to the show. Julian Caesar says, it's been so long since I've seen the show, I'm not sure how I should feel about it these days. I think that's one of the things about MASH is it was a thought-provoking show. So if you have feelings about it, I say good deal. Let's put Loretta Swit back up here. I'm glad they finally ditched the laugh track, says Rumpled Trenchcoat. Me too. Let's see. Julian, there was a lot of sexist humor in the first few seasons. Hawkeye was a lot like Groucho Marx, which don't hold up, but it was closer to how the characters originally were portrayed from the book and the movie. Captain Stone Crab says Frank Burns eats worms, which is a famous line from the show. I'll say another thing. Hawkeye stopped being such a lech, and once it was because somebody objected, but I think the one that really nailed it was one of the nurses that he had had a dalliance with had died. And he felt terrible that he wasn't more caring and wasn't, she was just like an object to him, because he was going through that nurse's staff like, Grant took Richmond. And I think that changed his attitude too. And there were episodes like that were just really, wow. Gene says, Rumpled, thank you for the gift. You are sweet. You're welcome, Gene. Yes, the benevolent and talented Rumpled Trenchcoat. Julian Zeter says, recent historical scholarship by Stephen Cotton hints that North Korea, with Chi-Com backing, could have driven the USA into the sea, except that Stalin stepped in and forbade it because of a back channel deal. I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word for it. There were times in that war where it's complicated. Julian Zeter says, I'll read the book again soon, Rumpled Trenchcoat, a Columbo podcast. Thanks. H2BH says Johnny Brooks. H2 have you, Johnny Brooks. Gilman's got a 199 super sticker. Gilman, always good to see you. Rumpled Trenchcoat says, you're welcome, Julian. I remember the book being good, but Hawkeye was a lot more of a bully than his eventual portrayal. Yeah, Hawkeye became Alan Alda by the end of the series. Thanks, Columbo, says Captain Stonecraft. Just got here. Love the lyrics of the theme song. Yes, they are very good, aren't they? And there's only, I think, one time where they actually sing the full lyrics in the show. You're welcome, Captain Crag. It was eye-opening that they directed doctors back then, wasn't it, though? And those guys were very vocal about, we don't want to be here. Rumpled Trenchcoat. People saying hi. I didn't know it was a novel. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It was a novel that became a book. Jared says, remember the episode that the soldier had to get blood transfusion but didn't want any? Yes. Yes, I do. When he was under anesthesia, they painted his face. Yes. And told them they all had that blood from that racial group. I also remember, and it's one of my favorite episodes, there is a soldier who stutters that's wounded. And his commanding officer comes in and is just awful to him, calls him an idiot, calls him every name in the book, portrays him as being stupid. And Charles Emerson Winchester III tries to help him. He's like, I have some exercises you could do that could relieve a lot of this. And by the way, and he goes through a list of famous people who were stutterers. I think Einstein might have been one of them. And he said, this doesn't have to be an impediment to your life unless you want it to be. And then this doctor, this commanding officer comes in again and lays on the insults, and Winchester, who outranks this guy, takes him in a side room and says, if you say one more word to that soldier, I will have you booted out of here. I will write you up. I will take it to the highest authority myself personally. I mean, he loses it. And Charles, when he got mad, could be really mad. And you're wondering, why? What's the deal? What's going on here? And then at the end of the episode, Charles gets mail. And one of the things in the mail was a tape recording. And he puts it on, and it's a tape from his sister who has a stutter. Brilliant episode. Brilliant episode. Really, really brilliant. Gilman expressing his thanks to Rumpled Trenchcoat. See, we do have a cheerful chat room here. Sorry, I'm driving and using text to speech. That's okay. We got the drift. Trust me. Let's see. You're welcome, Gilman. Julian Zeter says, also the acknowledgement that there were a lot of Turkish soldiers on the UN side back when they were trying to get into the good graces of the West and NATO. I think the Korean War is a very misunderstood war. I really do. I don't know if you guys know about the actor James McKeechan, but he was on my podcast, and he received was it a Purple Heart and a Silver Star? Like 40 years later, and was buried in some paperwork. And he talked a lot about some of the elements of that war. And I think MASH does one thing they do a great job of was the wild swings in weather. It could be brutally cold and it could be tropical. But a very misunderstood war. I think over the years, maybe more people need to do documentaries and deep dives into that particular conflict. Rumpled Trenchcoat says, some of my favorite episodes were when Winchester was allowed to be more human, like when he saved a soldier's leg at the expense of some response of his fingers, but he was a pianist. Yeah, he's a really great character. So Winchester got a bunch of sheet music to be played by one hand for the man. Yes, the Threepenny Opera. And he had a very tender, caring side to him that he didn't often show, particularly because he took a lot of guff from the people there at the 4077, some of them, but he had a real humanitarian side to him. He really, really did, and was a lot more giving than his sort of upper crust, who cares about other people kind of facade might have indicated. One of the writers from the show, Ken Levine, revealed that on one occasion when the cast offered too many nitpicking notes on a script, his writing partner and he changed the script to a cold show, one set during the frigid Korean winter. The cast then had to stand around barrel fires in parkas at the Malibu Ranch when the temperatures neared 100 degrees. He says, this happened maybe twice and we never got the ticky-tack notes again. Jackie Cooper, legendary actor, but also became quite an accomplished director, particularly for television, wrote that Alan Alda, who Cooper directed in several episodes during the first two seasons, concealed what Cooper felt was a lot of hostility toward him, and the two barely spoke to each other by the time Cooper's tenure on the show had ended. Yes, well, yes. Let's see here. The final episode, let's talk about it. The final episode was called Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. Special television sets were placed in PX parking lots, auditoriums, and day rooms of the U.S. Army that happened to, at that time, in 1983, be stationed in Korea so that the military personnel could watch the episode in spite of the 14 hours time difference. The episode aired on February 28th, 1983, and was 2.5 hours long. The episode got still the highest rating for a single episode of a television program, not a sporting event, in the history of American broadcasting. A 60.2 rating, but a 77 share. And according to a New York Times article from 1983, the final episode of MASH had 125 million viewers. Now, when the MASH finale aired in 1983, 83 million homes in the U.S. had televisions, compared to about 115 million in 2010. So 83 million homes, 125 million viewers. That episode, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, broke the record for the highest percentage of homes with television sets to watch a television series. The episode was seen by so many people that the New York City Sanitation and Public Works Department reported the plumbing systems broke down in some parts of the city from so many New Yorkers waiting till the end of the show to use the toilet. Yes. Interviews with New York City sanitation workers cited a spike in water use on that night. According to the interviews, at 11:03 p.m. Eastern, New York City Public Works noted the highest water usage at a given time in the city's history, and they attributed this to the fact that in the 3 minutes after the finale ended, around 77% of the people of New York flushed their toilets. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. The show struggled in its first season and was at risk of being canceled, but in season 2, MASH was placed in a better time slot by CBS, right behind All in the Family. Okay? And then it became one of the top 10 programs of the year, and it stayed in the top 20 for the rest of its run. It's still broadcast in syndication on various television stations, and the series had 256 episodes, lasted 11 seasons. The Korean War lasted 1,128 days, meaning each episode of the series would have averaged about 4.5 days of real time. Yes. The episodes Abyssinia Henry and The Interview were ranked number 20 and number 80, respectively, on TV Guide's 100 Greatest Episodes of All Time. In 2002, MASH was ranked number 25 on TV Guide's 50 Greatest TV Shows of All Time. In February of 2008, the series was named the number one smartest TV show of all time by Jim Wordle, chairman of Mensa International, who said it had smart repartee and it was so much more than a comedy. In 2013, the Writers Guild of America ranked it the 5th best written TV series ever, and TV Guide ranked it as the 8th greatest TV show of all time. There you go. Now, I want to talk for a second about the episode Abyssinia Henry. 77th episode of the series. And it's a totally shock ending, which prompted almost more than 1,000 letters to the series producers. And it drew criticism from CBS and 20th Century Fox. Staff follows Henry Blake to the helicopter pad because he's getting sent home. And the ending of the series, he gives everybody an individual goodbye. They're all cut short by the arrival of the helicopter. Hawkeye pulls Blake aside and whispers in his ear, and he just walks up and just gives Margaret Hot Lips O'Houlihan a huge kiss. I mean, a giant smacker. And the staff follow Henry to the helicopter pad. His chopper's carrying a wounded soldier that Henry tries to care for before the other doctors nudge him aside. And at that point, he sees a very emotional radar saluting him. And he returns the salute and hugs him before he gets on the helicopter and flies away. Cut to later, Rado O'Reilly, very visibly shaken, enters the operating room during a super busy shift. You can tell they're all just operating their brains out. And Trapper and Hawkeye make joking comments to him, but Radar tells them the plane carrying Henry Home has been shot down. Henry Home has been shot down over the Sea of Japan. There were no survivors. The stunned staff members struggle to regain their composure and proceed to their work as he leaves. And then the episode ends with a bunch of, lighthearted clips and stuff. This scene was unprecedented. It was the first time in American television history that a main character departing a comedy series was killed off in a tragic way. To evoke genuine emotions of shock and sadness, and to ensure the performances for the majority of the episode were not influenced by actors' knowledge of his fate, the final OR scene was kept a secret from the cast, except Alan Alda, of course. He's got to know everything. Until immediately before filming. And only then did they get the last page of the script. As a result, McLean Stevenson was still on set and saw it being filmed. And then they had a huge cast party planned, but Stevenson left the set almost immediately after the end of the filming, and the party was canceled because everyone was in such a bad mood. Stevenson later said that he was deeply hurt that his character's death was revealed to the cast this way and that the party was ruined. So there you are. I think that's all I got to tell you about this show. I could tell you about the reaction to this. Everyone was mad. Everyone was mad. The creators wrote a letter to a specific irate viewer, and it said, "I respect your reaction to the episode of March 18th. We feel that Henry Blake's death was consistent with the series' philosophy regarding the utter wastefulness of war. Many, far too many men, women, and children simply do not walk or fly away from it and live happily, if ever at all." So Due to the overwhelming number of complaint letters, a form response was created explaining the rationale of their decisions. And not all of it was negative, but most of it was. And I remember seeing that episode when it aired, because my family always watched All in the Family, and therefore we always watched MASH. And when that happened, my parents, the whole room just went, Jared just saw Trapper Tom. Thank you. Winchester's ham-handed, no pun, attempts at helping the pianist who had lost a hand and his eventual enlightenment about the tragedy. Yes. Some of my favorite episodes were when Winchester... Oh, I already did that part. Yes. Julian Caesar says, I never saw the final episode, a bit before my time. I bet you can find it on YouTube. I really do. You can't watch this series for free. You got to pay for it. I'm sure maybe on YouTube or maybe on some Daily Motion or somewhere, Vimeo, you can see that last episode. Let me see. I just closed the thing. Let's see here. Goodbye, farewell, and amen is what it's called. Look it up. TV writers often developed a contempt for their audience. I'm not going to disagree with that. Blake's death was a blank you to McLean Stevenson, so there was no possibility to come back to the show. There's been a lot written about that, but yeah, I think, and you discussed it earlier, I think it wasn't so much he was leaving as what he was leaving for. I have a TV writer in my family. Okay, Julian, so you know better. I think all people in entertainment eventually developed a contempt for their audience. No, I'm not mentioning any names. I'll just put those guys up there. Let's put the beginning. I guess the funny cast. E Villain says H2BH, H2BH to you. Sue Side is painless. Who had more complaints about Sopranos ending or the MASH ending? I think the Sopranos. E Villain does not like Vimeo. MASH's final ending was very well received. It's just Blake's death was so shocking. Yes, MASH's final ending was brilliant. It's one of the better final series episodes, and it's 2.5 hours long. I remember I was playing indoor soccer at the same facility at night for the MASH ending and the Cheers ending. And it just so happened one of the ladies that owned the place was working behind the concession stand both nights. And it was one of those deals where you didn't want to leave to go home, because by the time I got home, a lot of it would have been over. So I'm sitting there. I'm in all my indoor goalkeeper stuff. And during the Cheers ending, she just turns to me. She puts down a big Coke, a Mountain Dew, right in front of me, a popcorn and a hot dog, and goes, so here we are again. It's like, I don't know how many years apart, but I thought it was pretty funny. Facility, Looney Bin. No, it's an indoor soccer facility in Indianapolis. It was open for a long time. I don't know if it still is or not. When is the Cheers? Cheers final episode was when? Yeah, it was 10 years later. 10 years later. And I just gotten done with the match, and it was just boom, boom, boom. So here we are again, because they had a TV, an old school TV, right there above the concession stand. And they had it hooked up to video tape, usually. They for a long time videotaped the games, so they would always have a video of one of the games up there just playing. And on this occasion, and on some occasions, probably the Super Bowl day or whatever, they would just, had an antenna on it and it showed stuff. So I sat there and watched it with one of the ladies that owned the place. Oh, yeah. Good times. A couple years later, they bought the place next door. And they put a bar and restaurant in that place. And the curvature, because indoor soccer is played like on a hockey rink. And at one end, the curve with all the plexiglass and stuff, all of that, that's where the bar was at. And you could just sit there and you're kind of right in the corner. And it was a cool place. 34th and high school, I think. 38th, 34th, I can't remember. 34th, I think. And it had an official name, but everybody just called it 34th in high school. Anyway, that's all I got to tell you about ye old MASH. Now, I can do, I can go ahead and, open up the old link. I just don't think anybody will use it, but I can open it up for a little while if you want me to. If you would like me to, I will do that. Oh, doggone it, I got to open up a different window here. I will do that. I'll do it. I got no shame in my game. Yeah, I said it. Whoops. I think I'm going to make a pizza after this. I'm starting to get real hungry. And after my Wendy's escapade yesterday, I can't believe they've got the campaign Meal of Misfortune. That's just wrong. Meal of Misfortune is not what I want to see on a banner when I go to eat a fast food. I don't mind seeing the spoon of gloom. That I don't mind. But Meal of Misfortune just doesn't sound savory at all. Not at all. Let me pin this sucker. Come on. Don't be a guy. Pin the message. I pinned it. I'll wait a few minutes on this. Let's see. I think I already chatted out all my mass knowledge. That's okay, Rumpled. You've more than done your part to help this show, this Bledling show. CIA, I didn't realize you were doing a show on mashed potatoes. What's your favorite potato? Russet. Good night, says Gilman. Remember the bug out episode? Yes, I do. The MASH stands for Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. But it wasn't that mobile. They didn't move that often. But I do remember the bug out. Yes. And I think in the final, one of the reasons everybody was going home was the war was ending, but also because they were, taking a lot of heat. I have some potatoes roasting in the oven right now. Well, I'll be. We're all coming to a real potato thing. Taters. By the way, I should mention, if you want to use the link, you do not have to have a camera on. You just turn your camera off and you can come on with just your voice. And it'll put a little circle there or whatever, but I don't believe I made that symbol for circle, but I did. And you can do it that way. It's my imitation of suicide is painless. You see if this is going to be good to me, if it's going to take 27 years to load. Nope, it's going to be good. Bam. Bam. It's a good way to end the show right here. There, looky there. There you go. That's what you were all waiting for, right? With the girl running real fast at the beginning. Where would Alan Alda be right now if it wasn't for MASH? Where do you think? Anybody? Anybody? Hard to say. Difficult to say. Says I. Anybody got any great memories of MASH? There's so many good episodes, though. There's just, and then you see them over again. You watch them over again, and oh, I forgot about this one. This is a great one. Is Alan Alda a sex symbol? I think Alan Alda is kind of like Phil Donahue in that he's that in touch with your feelings kind of, you know what I mean? He's just not that macho. He's, I think to a certain segment of the population, he indeed is a sex symbol. I would say. Doesn't do a lot for me personally, but then again, I don't think he's trying to. Alan Alda was really good on The West Wing. He's been really good in a lot of stuff. I vaguely remember some article asking if Alan Alda and Woody Allen were sex symbols way back in the day. Yeah, they were kind of in that same... Although Woody Allen had much more of a lecherous... he was, you know... But, yeah, that was kind of that. You don't have to be Clint Eastwood or John Wayne to be the sex symbol type period, I guess. I got to do some work over here tonight. I think I got to do some work. I do still think about the episode when Potter comments how much he likes tomato juice. The whole episode is about people trading favors to get some juice, only for Potter to reveal he's allergic to it. Yeah, that's a great episode. I also like the one where Klinger is going to forge his name. And as he's learning how to copy the name, he keeps imitating him. Sherman T. Potter. Sherman T. And here's a little story. Do you remember the horse that Potter has on the series? Well, after the series, all the cast members go away, the lights are down, everything. The horse, Sophie, was reportedly not doing well. Wasn't feeling well, wasn't eating, wasn't doing anything. And Harry Morgan, the actor, had really cared for this horse during the series. So he learns the horse isn't feeling well. He goes to where the horse is being kept, goes over to it and just immediately bonds, buys the horse, takes it back to his property, and raises it and takes care of it for the rest of its life. That's a great episode. I forgot about that episode. There's so many good ones. There's just so many good ones. Some of the Donald Penobscot ones are good. I think there's one where there's a bunch of them where they run into a really awful commanding officer of troops that doesn't treat the troops very well, and they outfox them. Yeah, it is a nice story about the horse. Yep. What was his wife's name? Potter's wife's name? Was it Dottie or I can't remember. But he was always talking about her. And good old Klinger. you know, he was great comic relief. It was Mildred. I think it was Mildred Julian Caesar. And just that they had a still in their quarter in the swamp. They have a functioning still. I love it. There was an episode where Potter makes the officers take on different duties than they normally would, because they were sort of grousing about this and that. And he puts Pierce in charge of KP. Not KP, but the mess. Julian said, yes, the still in the tent was fascinating to me. Well, they were doctors. They knew about chemicals and stuff. So Pierce is in charge of the mess. And he goes in there, and this guy that's been cooking for all these people, and of course they always complain about the food, is there. And Pierce is describing how, his mother would make this amazing French toast. And this guy has got this big cauldron there. And it's like, oh, my mom has the greatest recipe for French toast. It starts with the milk. Oh, the milk has got to be, and this guy just takes this giant tureen of milk and dumps it in there without ceremony. And then, of course, the cinnamon. And this guy is just dumping things into this like he just doesn't care. Pierce is on this long, eloquent description of this very carefully made French toast. And at the end, and this guy keeps stirring it up with a big ladle, and at the end, and then the bread, okay? The bread must be gingerly dipped into the, and this guy just takes this giant thing of bread, and you can see these individual pieces of bread just falling out of it. And then at the end, it's done perfectly because you pinch the bread, and it just gives a little bit of, just pinch it slightly, and then he starts stirring this giant cauldron with all the bread in it. And Pierce is just looking at him. He's just heartbroken the way this is going. And the guy this dude is just, would you like to pinch the bread or shall I? And it just makes me laugh every time I see it. Oh yeah, I forgot about the Cajun guy. Yeah. There was, G.W. Bailey was in it too. He was Sergeant Zillow, I forget his name. There's a lot of great actors in it. A lot of them. Okay, nobody's going to come online here, so I think we're going to put a fork in this thing. I do not. Oh, here's something we can do. I don't know what tomorrow's show is going to be about. Again. Now, I can figure it out, but if anybody, you got any requests, as you know, I'm not bashful. You go ahead and say so, and I'll... Oh, wait a minute. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to do a show about Halloween, because we're on Halloween month, and some people get mental about Halloween, and it's the whole month. We got to have the whole month, so maybe that's what it'll be about. Christian Slater says, Tom, I think you know what I want. I was trying to think of an appropriate spider, and I couldn't think of one. Spiders are a big part of Halloween. Well, let's just save that. I can do one on the black. Oh, candy corn. Underrated. Oh, I hate candy corn. Let me write these down. I'm almost out of 3x5 cards. Oh, Jesus. All right, let me see here. Candy, corn, and then I could do the Black Widow. We can save the Sydney Funnel Web. I don't know what tomorrow's going to be about, but we will, during the month of October, be doing both of those subjects. Jared says, let's leave this show up to you, Tom. Well, thanks, Jared. You're awful nice for letting me Did you know they used to make crosshairs and guns out of spider silk? I did know that. I did know that. I actually did know that. Yep. All right. I think that's going to about do it. I'll tell you what. Hopefully we'll see you here tomorrow. I got to think of something tonight. I want to get this baby posted and have it in the upcoming section. So thank you to the legendary Rumpled Trenchcoat for being around for 17 months. And thank you also to the legendary Rumpled Trenchcoat for gifting 5 Tom Gulley Show memberships. I don't think I met my payout threshold for this month, which isn't very high. Just not very high. And thank you to Gilman for the $1.99 super sticker. I appreciate that. And thank you also to Julian Zeezer for the PayPal donation earlier in the week. Very nice. Those are all very nice things. Well, Halloween is coming up, so you can do one day a week. Oh, I'll do all the days of the week if you want. I don't care. Thanks all. Maybe do a show on an old school candies. Spooky stuff. Well, I'll be doing spooky stuff. You got that right. An old school candy? Maybe. I kind of feel like I should do it on a... Well, I did the Rosenbergs. They're people, or they were. I haven't done a rock band in a long time. I haven't done a super weird, well, I did Jello recently. It's not the most normal subject. I'll think of something. I always do. And let's see, goodbye, farewell, and see you soon. Thank you. Rumpled Trenchcoat, Columbo Podcast. You better go subscribe to that right now on YouTube, or you'll just won't be very cool. Our antisocial people. Yeah. They are. We love you, Tom. Come hang in VC. I will, as soon as I start making the pizza. Or maybe I don't need the pizza. I don't know. All right. Well, with all that being said, I think the only thing left to say is, till next time. We'll see you next time. We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin, and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. Here we go now. I'm talking about Mr. Gulley, and you don't know where he's been. Oh no, he's been right in your alley. Well, I'm Mr. Gulley, yes I am. So what we're talking about?